Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao.
This is Pranuti,
Amit,
and Purva, and we're from the Daily Pao, a Bombay-specific culture and food site, and this is our fortnightly podcast, The Paodcast. In this episode, we'll be talking to Chef Manish Mehrotra of the Delhi restaurant Indian Accent in our food section, Bombay Binge. In our culture section, The Scene, we'll be discussing a clutch of new music festivals in the city. And in Metro Station, our city news and history showcase, we'll be interviewing anti-noise activist Sumaira Abdulali. So stay tuned for Bombay Binge.
Bombay Binge.
We have Chef Manish Mehrotra on the show. He's the chef owner of Indian Accent, needs very little introduction. And we're speaking to chef who's in Bombay right now. We're actually not in the studio, but he's here to cook for a series of meals, lunches and dinners that are being hosted by Magazine Street Kitchen in Baikala. And these are actually Chef Manish's first public events in Bombay. So welcome on the show, Chef Manish.
Thank you so much. Really excited to be here.
Okay, so we'll get to it right away. I think the first pressing question that almost everybody has had is, A, why did it take you so long to come to Bombay? And then I'll give you the B part of that eventually.
It's said when something is like your home, always you come home late. So Bombay is always my home, and studied here, started my career from Bombay. So I came here a lot for private events, but this is the first time I'm cooking for everyone, I would say.
Is this because were you looking for the right kind of fit for these kind of meals? Were there any reservations about cooking here on a bigger scale for like an open event?
No, not any fear or anything like that. But the thing is, past 2 years we were trying to open Indian Accent here, which didn't happen. So we thought we'll open Indian Accent rather than doing a pop-up here.
Okay.
So we didn't do any pop-up.
Right.
And that is why it's so late.
So, that actually links to my second question. There has been so much speculation about your opening here. Every couple of months, news reports say that you're coming, not coming. And then New York happened. So is that something was any of this planned, or is Bombay still part of your, opening plan ever?
No, Bombay is going to be always on our radar, and we are going to open in Bombay. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I told you, last 2 years we tried. We tried 2-3 locations.
Yeah.
But something happened and it didn't happen. And then New York came up, and we found a fantastic location for New York. So the entire focus shifted on New York.
Okay.
And it's Indian Accent is such a place you can't replicate it so easily. So after 7 years, we decided we will do another Indian Accent, and that was in New York.
Right.
New York is a tough city.
Right.
So at the moment, our focus was only on New York.
Okay. You've pioneered what we now call modern Indian or contemporary Indian, and now there are a lot of sort of restaurants that are trying to do the same thing. What are your thoughts on this? Are you glad that maybe this genre of cooking is expanding, or I don't know, do you think that there is, I don't know, tell me your thoughts about this.
I would say this is very, very good. At least now young generation are started going back to Indian restaurant because of this type of Indian food, and it is good for the cuisine also to move forward, that this cuisine becomes global Indian cuisine, because earlier it was all dominated by one type of Delhi-centric Punjabi cuisine, which end of the day, even I love eating it, but we have many more. I would say Meen Moili is a butter chicken of South India, what I feel. I love eating Meen Moili.
Yeah.
So there are so many gems which we have in our cuisine, which are always overshadowed.
Right.
And this type of food, people are now exploring more, chefs are exploring more, young chefs are doing new things, presenting in a different way with the modern ingredients. So which is good, and cuisine is moving forward. It's very good.
as the only restaurant from India that has made it to the Asia's 50 best restaurant list, it has made it to the world's best restaurant list, has this sort of changed the way you approach cooking? Has it put any pressure? What do these awards mean to you?
See, awards are always good. Whenever you get an award, you feel happy about it. But and definitely when you get an international recognition, definitely you have more pressure because the person who's walking inside your restaurant, he's coming up with one extra expectation.
Right.
So I always say it's not another feather on my cap. In my cap, it's more of another stone on my shoulder. So it's awards are fine, but it definitely expectation goes up and up and up, and it becomes really challenging. You have to keep on your toes to make sure you satisfy people's expectation every time they come to your restaurant.
But does that alter anything in the kitchen in the sense that does it push you to innovate more, or has your approach to cooking always been firm regardless of the new?
See, from the beginning when I started Indian Accent, even before that, whatever I was doing, it was always I was cooking the way I want to eat and the way I want to cook, I was doing that. But the thing is, when you are recognized and all these things, then your own knowledge starts increasing.
Right.
You get more exposure, you get more mature, and that is what happened with me also.
Yeah.
When I see my first menu at Indian Accent in 2009,
right,
I sometimes laugh at what I was doing at that time and what I am doing now.
Yeah.
So even I have evolved in those 7 years. So
right,
I would say I have learned a lot and still learning.
Yeah.
And definitely you have to come up with new things every day.
So coming up with new things, you are very respectful towards vegetables, showcasing them is what I mean, and also the way you pair things. Now, I've read that you want to communicate a story. Is it important to convey that? First of all, how do you keep expanding your repertoire of ingredients? Do you go on walks? Do you deliberately travel to different parts of India? And B, is it important to convey that story to the diner? How do you do that?
First thing, I have a firm belief that vegetarian food can be really, really tasty. Because I belong to a family which was a no onion, no garlic family. My father never used to eat onion and garlic. We are not Jains,
yeah,
but onion was never part of our home cooked food. So I know that without onion and garlic, vegetarian food can be very, very tasty.
Right.
So I have a firm belief in that.
Yeah.
And as Indian food, I would say we have a trump card in our hand that we have the amount of vegetarian repertoire we have in our cuisine. No other cuisine have that kind of a repertoire in their cuisine, whether it's Chinese, Italian, or any other cuisine.
Right.
So vegetarian food should be our strong point, and we should highlight it.
Yeah.
And when you do use vegetables, the concept of farm to table becomes easy in India.
Yeah.
Because vegetables are available easily. In terms of other things like seafood in Delhi, we really struggle with the prawns and all these things, or meats and all these things with the restrictions and all these things. So vegetables are more approachable for me.
Yeah.
So that is why and definitely India, a lot of people are vegetarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of how you do your research, do you actually travel to different parts of the country routinely, or is it just that if you're out in the market, then you just have this knack of finding things?
See, I always see my inspiration comes from day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
And day-to-day life, yes, I travel a lot.
Yeah.
And I go to the markets, I see things. But again, you sometimes see things in such a way that it really gives you ideas, it inspires you, and you want to turn it into a dish.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't work. But most of the times, inspiration comes from your day-to-day life, and definitely I do a lot of research. I keep myself updated what is happening in the world. I keep my library updated.
Yeah.
I have more than 1,200 to 1,300 books in my office, in my library.
Yeah.
So I keep on updating myself. Yeah.
How do you toe the line when it comes to this is especially sort of relevant to Indian cooking, modern Indian cooking, because there is fusion. And then there is modern Indian. One is associated with being slightly more edgy. One is associated, it has a slightly more a negative connotation. So how do you toe the line between gimmicky and modern Indian? Like, what are these concepts to you?
Like till 5 years back, fusion was a bad word, but now it is not.
Yeah.
And if you consider India as a fusion country, that the first fusion dish in India was chicken Manchurian.
Right.
35 years back, and what all dishes you used to get in Grey Shobha and all these type of Sarita and all these type of magazine, those used to be a real fusion. And one thing I would really want to tell then. More fusion happens in people's home than in restaurants.
Right.
You will be surprised at how many types of fusion dishes a housewife can do to show off her cooking and which is very, very good.
Yeah.
And what is happening, what type of fusion, what I do or a modern Indian food is anything you mix, anything you combine, there has to be a reason or a story behind it.
Yeah.
Until and unless there is no reason behind it,
Right.
although there's no story behind it, and I think it fails.
Right.
Like if you are mixing something with something, like I do blue cheese naan.
Yeah.
Why blue cheese naan?
Yeah.
Because blue cheese and bread is a classic combination in the world.
Right.
And that is why blue cheese and naan. And blue cheese is very strong flavor for Indian palate. So you encase a little bit in a naan, which is a bit familiar for people.
Yeah.
And when you eat it, the blue cheese is slightly toned down because of the naan dough.
Yeah.
And with the tandoor and the burn factor of tandoor, it works.
Yeah.
So if there is a reason behind those dish, it's perfect.
Yeah.
If it is vague fusion, it will never work.
Yeah.
But one thing I clearly believe, end of the day, taste matters.
Yeah.
If it is tasty or not tasty.
Yeah.
Any cuisine in the world, I would say.
Fair enough. There's always been this sort of Delhi versus Bombay food debate. Is this a valid argument at all? As somebody who loves to eat as well, what would you say?
This Delhi versus Bombay debate was always there. When I came to join college, like in the college, we used to have this kind of a debate. Ye Delhi wala hai, ye local hai. So we used to have this debate always.
Right.
And we used to be hostile and all these things.
Yeah.
But I would say both the cities have something really extraordinary to offer.
Right.
And the amount of repertoire in Bombay or amount of repertoire in Delhi, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like Delhi represents the entire North India, the UP, Punjab and Himachal and Kashmir kind of a region.
Yeah.
And the food.
Yeah.
And Bombay represent excellent Maharashtrian, Konkan, Goan, Gujarati, Mangalorean, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, all these types of food. Matunga is a great flavor if you want to go to a Tamil kind of a thing. Or old restaurant in Dada like Sindhudurg and all these for Konkani, Malwani food. Or your Kolaba we used to go to for the Kerala fried fish with rice and all these things.
Right.
So both the cities, they've got their things to offer. And both the cities are rich in their Muslim cooking also, which is there in Bombay. Phenomenal Mahim ka kebab. We used to run from college and go to Mahim to eat kebab, that Bharat training school, driving school ke bagal mein used to a kebab place, and we used to go there to eat kebab. It used to be yum. It would be spicy but very, very tasty. So, and Delhi you have again your Chandni Chowk and all these things you have. So both the cities, there is no competition when both the contestants are equal. You might be saying it's a diplomatic answer you are giving because you are sitting in Bombay.
I wasn't going to say it,
but it's true. Both have phenomenal things to offer.
Right.
So there's no competition, I would say.
What's the one restaurant that's always on your Bombay list?
There's not one. There are many.
Okay.
Always go to Swati. I love panki there. So and you don't get it in Delhi.
Right.
You really don't get it in Delhi. So you really want to eat that panki. So always Swati. This time I'm trying to go to Som to try that. And then roadside vada pav. You don't get pav in Delhi. You don't. You get buns in Delhi. You don't get pav in Delhi.
Right.
So that pav with vada pav with anywhere. That is one thing. Pav bhaji. You don't get that pav bhaji in Delhi that flavor of pav bhaji in Delhi at all.
Yeah.
So pav bhaji is again one thing which. So all these small things.
Yeah.
And you come to Bombay and definitely try. You go to Table for their boneless chicken wing and zucchini spaghetti. You go to Konkan Cafe for. That's amazing, especially that stuffed chilies, that fried chilies with give their papad.
Yeah.
And so all these things like these are amazing, I would say.
Thank you for being
Thank
on
you
our podcast,
so much.
Chef.
Thank you so much.
And we hope that you open in Bombay soon.
I would also love to do that, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you very
so
much.
much. Thank you.
Hello there, my name is Naveen Narona, and as a gay person in India, I get asked a lot of stupid questions.
Beta, is it LGBT or eligibility?
How do two men procreate?
Bro, is Grindr better than Tinder or what?
We answer all these questions and much more on my podcast, Keeping It Queer, where I talk to individuals from the LGBT community in India and learn about their personal stories. Catch all the episodes on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app you like. Till then, keep it queer.
The Scene.
So in the scene, this episode, we're going to be talking about a bunch of new music festivals that will be debuting in Bombay shortly. Amit, I know that we listed a whole bunch of these, and we were surprised at the number of new festivals that are suddenly launching in the city. I mean, there's a Bollywood music festival.
Yeah, well, the Bollywood Music Project is the new Bollywood Music Festival, and it's actually today, the day our podcast will air, which is the 30th of September. And this is a 2-day music festival that is basically, it's got all the Bollywood singers that have been performing on the circuit recently. It's got people like Arijit Singh, it's got Rekha Bharadwaj, it's got Papon, who is probably the most indie person on the list. It's got Amit Trivedi, who of course famously or infamously headlined Weekender a couple of years ago. And I think that basically one of the reasons why this festival is happening is because somebody finally realized that, hey, Bollywood guys are headlining indie music festivals. We might as well have a Bollywood music festival. And I
mean, it's surprising that we didn't have a Bollywood music festival.
Yeah.
Is this because we have Bollywood shows frequently?
No, so here's the thing, right? So the guy who's conceptualized this is a guy called Swaroop Banerjee. He's the CEO of a company called Event Capital. And I interviewed him, and he said that what he found was surprising, and which is true, is that you constantly hear about Bollywood musicians sort of doing like these sellout shows in these arenas abroad, like, selling out Wembley Arena and places like that. Arijit Singh himself has sold out Wembley Arena, and like you constantly hear about Vishal Shekhar and A.R. Rahman and all of these guys doing these big international tours, and he said that we don't actually do large-scale Bollywood events here, which is surprising. And recently, in fact, and we've been listing these gigs, like Arijit Singh and Amit Trivedi have been doing a lot of solo shows, and they've all been huge hits. So I think that's where this festival has come from. But this is just one of actually a bunch of new festivals, like you mentioned. And interestingly now, if you look at it, actually, even though music festivals have been something that have been pretty big since I think Weekender started in 2010, most of them have been outside of Bombay, like all the big ones. I mean, you think of music festivals, a lot of people, the first thing that comes to their mind is Weekender, which started out in Pune, and I think it's pretty much associated with Pune. Used to be in Delhi and Bangalore. This year, it's not happening in either of the cities. It's happening in Shillong, and it's happening in Hyderabad. And the other two festivals that people think about are Sunburn and Supersonic, which are EDM festivals, which happened in Goa, but we don't know whether they'll happen in Goa this year because, the government apparently is saying that they don't want these festivals to be there because it causes a huge infrastructure and traffic problem. And, how far that is true, I don't know. But Bombay is really not the first place that you think of when you think about music festivals.
Yet Bombay has quite a few small-scale music festivals. I mean, the 2 and 3 day festivals, like,
but
the
they're
Sufi
all,
music
most
festival.
of these are like 2 and 3. Yeah. You
the
have
jazz
like,
festival.
funnily enough, we used to have Jazz Yatra,
Right.
which happened in Delhi and used to happen in Bombay as well, but that stopped happening. And it's not easy to organize a festival here because there are a whole bunch of issues. It's a big hassle, especially not only with the number of licenses that you have to put together. There's a whole bunch of taxes. Bombay has one of the highest entertainment taxes in the country, so it's really not feasible. it's sort of, setting yourself for a whole lot of pain, and I think that's why people didn't do it. But what I find interesting is that the kind of music festivals that are debuting this year are more sort of, they're both a mix of the indie music festival kind of thing that you're seeing everywhere else, and also more family-oriented things. Now, family-oriented being this one, Bollywood music project, but they're not expecting only, under 25-year-olds to visit, but they expect like a whole bunch of families and mixed groups to come, because everybody listens to Bollywood music, and this is happening over 2 days.
Well, that's funny, because a lot of Bollywood music is item number type stuff. Is that really family?
Yeah, but you'd be amazed. I mean, look at it this way, right? You have, and it's shocking, but even kids sort of dance to item numbers,
right.
And
it's nice that there are. At least there are legitimate singers as part of this festival, and not like Saif Ali Khan playing a guitar.
Yeah, that's true. So there's no random people at this festival. Like there's Badshah, who's a rapper, but and so one of the things that this organizer said to me, he said was that song like Kala Chashma, you think that it's only teenagers dancing to it, but even like their parents are like which is true, right? I mean, Bollywood I just think had this widespread appeal, but the other one that's happening, which is actually happening just 2 weeks after the Bollywood Music Project, is something called Paddy Fields. Now, this is a folk and fusion music festival. This is going to have very sort of well-known names in the whole fusion scene. People like Papon, people like Dhruv Ghanekar, who's had this new project called Dhruv Voyage, which is kind of like a world music band where he has collaborates with this Assamese vocalist called Kalpana Patovari. And you've also got Mame Khan, the Rajasthani folk singer.
Actually, this sounds really interesting, this
Colonial
festival.
Cousins are making a comeback with this festival. I don't know how they're folk or fusion. But they're fusion. But
they're fusion
it's kind of a funny name, Paddy Fields, because we're nowhere close
We're nowhere close. And this is going to happen.
It sounds so ambient, but it's really
not.
Vasai
it's happening.
Zero should be called
It is not
Paddy
happening
Fields.
in, for instance, the RA Milk Colony. It is happening instead at the Bombay Exhibition Centre, which is also in Goregaon. But what's interesting about this one is going to be a seated festival.
Okay, well, for folk fusion, I suppose
which I suppose that's how they want to do it. And they've got space. I mean, this is an immensely huge venue. It's a convention center, and they've had things like more like B2B events like Palm Expo that happen there. So, and it's got and it's got a really interesting lineup. It's Nooran sisters, who have again done some Bollywood work. You might have heard them on Cook Studio, and
they're a
Punjabi sisters, and of course there's also a Bollywood element here. The Salim and Suleiman Merchant are going to be playing this, and now this has been organized by a couple of people. One is this company called Turnkey Music and Publishing, which is sort of headed by Atul Churamani, who is basically a record label veteran from the 90s. And he was sort of involved with a whole bunch of indie pop projects, which explains Colonial Cousins' presence. And it's produced by Orange Juice Entertainment, who also known as Fountainhead. Now, these guys actually are the people responsible for two of the other big music festivals that happen in Bombay. Not many others happen, but the two that have been happening for a few years now is one is the Mahindra Blues Festival and the Journey. Now, the Journey is Mahindra Blues, of course, is pretty famous and it's had of course, Buddy Guy played, I think, 3 out of the last 5 years, and the Journey is slightly more eclectic. They had this electro
Taiko,
sort of electronica, live electronica. Bonobo played it. Last year was also Giorgio Moroder played it. So it's slightly more electronic, but more live electronic.
Well, these are one day. A lot of them are one day events.
Well, Mahindra Blues is 2 days. The Journey is 1 day.
Right.
And I think that
they're calling Coldplay a festival.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're calling Coldplay. Now we want to be really strict about it, and you would probably say, what it does. It can't be a festival, it's only 1 day, which I totally agree with. But I think because of the paucity of the festivals that we have, if you look at it that way, then, these are pretty much the only other two that are happening, because only Mahindra Blues would qualify then. Jazz Utsav doesn't happen any longer. But so Coldplay, like you mentioned, is also going to be a 1 day event, but it's being called a festival. It's called the Global Citizen Festival, which is this whole worldwide thing, which actually happened in New York earlier this month, and
it has a very complicated ticket policy.
Yeah, well, the ticket.
I mean, you can either buy a ticket, which you
can't buy a ticket anymore because the day the tickets went live,
None of us could score
nobody
one.
could score. Well, you could score one, depending on how much you wanted to pay. Because I logged on at about 12:05 because I just couldn't get onto the Book My Show site at 12 when it sort of was when tickets went live, and when I was there, I was already some 2,000 and something in the queue, and then went up to 3,000 and something, and then it just was quite hilarious, and a lot of people had a similar experience, and ticket prices just went from 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000. But of course, you can win tickets. You can win a free ticket to this. I don't know, you can still do that, but at least at the time we recorded this, you had to just earn points on the Global Citizen website by doing things like sending petitions. It's oriented around the UN goals of like poverty elimination and sort of literacy and those kind of things. And you just had to sort of write to ministers, you had to tweet certain things, and you collected points. And then if you had enough points, you'd be put into this draw. And
so basically do a bit of armchair activism.
Exactly. I mean, some of it is, and of course, this festival, as you would know, is not just Coldplay, also Jay-Z.
Which is what I wanted to see.
We don't know how much stage time they will get because, as you know,
Katrina Kaif will also be on
there's
stage.
a galaxy of Bollywood stars who will be hogging the stage.
Yes.
And some of them are, Katrina Kaif and I think Aishwarya Rai, Amitabh
I'm surprised
Bachchan.
they haven't got
Aishwarya Rai is
Priyanka
there.
Chopra for this to sing.
No, there's no Aishwarya Rai. There is... now, interestingly, I don't know what exactly they're going to do because they have been called as part of the lineup. They have been said...
Is Farhan part of this?
Yes, he is, of course.
Yeah.
And there's Arijit Singh again at this festival. There's also Shankar Ehsaan and Loy. And there's also Farhan Akhtar. But, at least these guys have previously, I mean, they are sort of musicians in a sense. I mean, Farhan Akhtar is debatable. But here's who else is there. Amir Khan. Maybe he will sing Aati Kya Ghandala.
Amir Khan is like the... Okay, not that Katrina Kaif belongs here either.
Shraddha Kapoor, who is of course part of Rock On 2, so will probably be singing some of her Rock On 2 songs. But now I don't quite know what Ranveer Singh and Katrina Kaif are going to do, because as far as I know, they haven't ever sung.
Ranveer is the entertainment. He'll probably just jump around the stage, be his usual springy
Maybe
self.
he'll debut his new rap project. I don't know.
And what is Amitabh Bachchan
Because, he is
sing?
playing, allegedly, he is going to be acting in this film inspired by Nazi and Divine's Life that's being made by Zoya Akhtar.
Right.
So Ranveer is apparently playing Nazi. So,
Right. So maybe he'll rap some of Navy stuff. But what about Amitabh Bachchan?
he's not part of the lineup. Maybe he'll be a surprise set.
Right.
So that's happening in November. And, actually you can go for a different music festival every month for the next few months if you live in Bombay. If not in the city, but at least in its sort of vicinity. In September, like we said, right at the end, there's Bollywood Music Project. In October, there's Paddy Fields. In November, there's the Coldplay Global Citizen Festival. In December, The Journey should be back. And also in December is Weekend of Pune. In the first weekend of December, Pune is as good as Bombay. And Jan, there is the Nariyal Pani Music Festival, which happens in
Alibag.
Alibag, exactly. And in Feb is the Mahindra Blues Festival. So
a festival every month, literally.
A festival every month, pretty much, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's great, we need more festivals. Of course, what we don't have are the venues. I mean, none of these are particularly exciting venues. There are sort of closed spaces. And you have, like, the Coldplay gig will be at the MMRDA ground. And I don't know how it's going to be crowd-wise because it's going to be, they're expecting a whole bunch of people. But if you look at it, MMRDA is surrounded by glass buildings. It's hardly like a festival atmosphere.
Well, the same applies to Geo, I guess.
And Geo Garden, where the Bollywood Music Project is going to be.
Exactly.
It's both in BKC.
Also, I wonder if people will actually travel for these, because a festival just has that whole... You stay over or you camp somewhere.
I know a whole bunch of people are traveling for Coldplay, but they're coming strictly for Coldplay. But even if they turn out to be city festivals, I mean, you have to look at the lineups, right? There has to be somebody big enough, a huge draw for somebody to do it. And maybe these guys will see whether these are successful and they'll come and they'll... whatever. They might expand them to other cities. I'm sure there are people who come down every year for the Mahindra Blues Festival, for instance, right? Big blues fans will travel from across the country for a day. Similarly for The Journey, if there's somebody that you really want to see, you will be there for it. And maybe not so much for paddy fields or something like that, but I guess over time we'll figure that out. But I think Bombay is finally getting music festivals, whether they're in like unexciting venues, as long as the lineups are exciting, I think that's what matters.
Okay, well that's it for The Scene, and we'll be back with Metro Station.
Hi, I'm May, and I'm a huge fan of the indie music scene in our country. A scene that's relatively underground, even though it sometimes speaks its head overground, but there's no shortage of talent, and I get the privilege of interviewing some of the most awesome musicians on my show. I've had the likes of Euphoria, Krish Kale, Hardcore, Randolph Correa. I've had singer-songwriters, folk singers, electronic music producers, playback singers, rappers, fusion artists, instrumentalists, classical musicians, and so on. Whether mainstream or not, these people have chosen to release their original music, and these are the people currently shaping the direction in which our music scene is heading. Join me on my show every Monday and tune in to discover the unique talent coming out of India today. You can catch Made in India on your favorite podcasting app or our very own IVM podcast app.
Metro Station.
So today on Metro Station, we'll be speaking to Sumaira Abdulali. Sumaira is a noise activist, and she runs an NGO called the Awaz Foundation, which is one of the very few, if not the only, NGO that is dedicated to fight this issue. Now, I mean, this has got to be a really busy time for you, Sumaira, because it's the festive season, and I know that every festive season you monitor noise levels in the city. I mean, I know that every year I see the papers, I see your picture, and you've got a noise meter, and you're monitoring noise levels during Ganesh, during Diwali, etc. So is this year the same?
Well, this year is the same, and you're right that every festive season the noise levels are in the paper, but actually I'm monitoring noise the year round. So,
yeah. But this is when we see you in the paper.
This is when you see it, because this is the time when it becomes very intense.
Right.
The highest noise levels are recorded in the festive season.
Okay. Well, I was reading this article you wrote for The Hindu recently, and in that you've said something interesting. You said that in 2015, the noise levels were lower than what they were in previous years. So why is that the case?
During Diwali.
Yeah.
They have been getting lower and lower during Diwali. I'm only talking of Diwali.
Okay.
For the last several years.
Yeah.
And I think that's because people have started to become aware. And that awareness has come from children, from students.
Okay.
And because there is less of a political involvement in that particular festival as compared to other festivals, the state government actually took up a program where they taught children across all municipal schools of Maharashtra why firecrackers were bad for you.
Okay.
And that has really worked, I think.
So, I mean, how have the kids done something about this? I mean, are they bursting fewer firecrackers? Or?
Yeah, not only are they bursting fewer firecrackers, but I think they're telling their parents not to burst crackers.
Right.
And parents who don't want to perhaps listen to other adults definitely do want to listen to their children, and particularly when the health angle comes in.
Right.
Because they are damaging their children and their own, of course, health.
Right.
Very deliberately without knowing it.
Okay.
So the kind of education that they're getting through their children is very valuable.
Okay. But what about Ganesh? I mean, that's another noisy festival, and we've just finished with Ganesh. Any improvement there?
Well, yes, actually this year for the first time there was an improvement, and I think it's a result of the court order which we've recently got,
okay,
as well as the fact that the Ganesh Mandals themselves decided and sent messages to their own people not to use DJs.
Right.
So some of the most I would call it offensive music, non-religious music, which used to mar the festival, was missing this time.
Right.
And they had more of the instruments, but still it was very, very loud, and I think the Ganesh Mandals hopefully will take a cue from this and next year work to make it still softer.
Right.
I mean, it's strange that you asked this question immediately after the Diwali question.
Yeah.
Because when I started working on noise pollution in 2003,
right,
I assumed that Diwali would be the most difficult festival to control.
Right.
Because you have to reach out to individuals and educate all of them. and that a festival like Ganpati would be easier because they're organized festivals, and if the organizers understood what they were doing, they would help.
Right.
But actually, Diwali has started going down much before Ganpati, and this is the first year really we are seeing a change in Ganpati after the court order.
Right.
And the reason
Can you just explain this court order?
Yeah, but I'll just tell you the reason first. The reason is that actually during organized festivals, there is a strong negative, I would call it drive, not to implement the noise rules.
Okay.
And people who should be being educated, like the common man on the road, who's when I go out and I'm taking noise measurements, some people think that I should be worried for my safety.
Right.
But actually it doesn't work like that. I've been surprised to know that people who are on the street are actually very interested because they're concerned about their own health too, and they want to know whether what they're doing is within safe limits or not. And they have been misled many times to believe or to be told that if you do it for a short time, it's okay. And there's a huge vested interest in allowing this to happen. In fact, even a festival like Dahi Handi, which earlier was not a noisy festival, is catching up because of the commercial and the political involvement.
Yeah, so this time I noticed DJs during Dahi Handi.
That's right, which were less during Ganpati.
Yeah.
So actually it's worked the reverse of what logically it should have been, that it's harder to reach out to individuals. No, in this case, it hasn't been like that.
Right. Okay. Well, can you just explain the court order?
Yeah, the court order was a result of 10 PILs which were heard together.
Okay.
The first of them was mine, filed in 2003 against festival noise. And then a lot of people from different areas who found that festival noise was really out of hand joined, prominent among them being Dr. Mahesh Bedekar,
right,
who is a gynecologist who runs a nursing home in Thane, and his own patients were being very disturbed. So as we now know, noise hurts certain segments of people more, and infants, pregnant women, old people are among the highest risk groups. So he filed a petition and against festival noise and political involvement in festival noise. And then various other people, somebody from Pune, somebody from Navi Mumbai, and a whole lot of other people. Plus I filed another petition in 2007 against other types of noise, like traffic noise, construction noise, aviation, all kinds of other noise which were not part of the first petition. Yeah. And so this was a very comprehensive order, almost 140 pages.
Okay.
And almost like a book, I would say. And it discussed the noise rules, the previous findings of various courts, including the Supreme Court, and exactly how the rules were to be implemented. So the roles assigned to different government agencies, the role of enforcement, who should do the enforcement, awareness, all those things. And of course the major bulk of it was to do with festival noise and loudspeakers, but it's also addressed traffic noise, decibel levels of horns, aviation, construction, all these things. And because the government hasn't actually come out with an action plan for any of these things, including even infrastructure planning related to noise, particularly with regards to the DP of Mumbai, which is currently being finalized. So the court has said that the DP should include noise concerns as well.
Right.
And so these things they have kept 2 dates for compliance. The first is 4th of October, which is for compliance with noise rules. Immediately after some of the noisiest loudspeaker using festivals. Of course, Diwali will be after that.
Right.
And they have kept a date in December for compliance with an action plan, from the government about other types of noise.
Okay. Well, now the problem with is in the enforcement, isn't that right? Because I mean the noise rules were, I think, notified back in 2000, if I'm correct.
2000.
But the fact of the matter is that they're not enforced. Now it's interesting that you brought up construction noise, because that's so unregulated, but it's also one of the greatest sources of noise in the city. And anyone who's lived near a construction site, I mean, you go crazy. You know, I remember two buildings coming up on either side of my building, and I used to go insane, especially on weekends, you know, when you're, you know, trying to get some quiet time. So, I mean, what can the common person do? Like, you know, I would go every day to those construction sites and say, okay, you know, it's after 6 o'clock or it's, you know, 10 in the night, you need to stop. You need to stop with your drilling. But what can a common person say to these people in a convincing manner?
You know, sorry, just adding on to that, I think it's the same question, because I stay right opposite a hospital. And my road in Bandra is one of the busiest and the noisiest in terms of traffic. I have to close my windows in order to sleep, and luckily I have thick windows, so it cancels out some of that noise. And despite everybody knows that the hospital's here, it's an arterial road, and even during Diwali, it's not like it affects anybody's decision to tone down their festivities either. So what do we do? Like, this is something that I've thought of, but I've just felt so helpless, because I'm like, how do I sleep at night? You know, just something as basic as that. And how is it affecting the hospital? I mean, can they enforce it? Like, you know, because there hasn't been any change.
There's a silent zone board in your lane, but obviously
it's obviously like flouted. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we all agree enforcement is really the point.
Yeah.
But enforcement will come when there's a will to enforce.
Right.
And that has 2-3 ways of I can't say of stopping the noise, perhaps that's asking too much, in any reasonable time period, but definitely in making some difference. And that is, one is through a court order, which we now have for the first time. We've had the rules always,
right,
but the rules were never taken seriously for various reasons. Because, I mean, not for various reasons, for reasons like that people always believe that some other group should be made to enforce first.
Right.
I mean, to be very specific, if you say that Ganpati noise should be reduced, it's very amazing that although Azan happens year round, it's only around Ganpati that I suddenly start getting calls about noise from Azan. So which makes you feel that it's just a way of putting it off.
Right.
But actually noise is noise, whether it's Azan or whether it's Ganpati or whether it's anything else. So all need to be controlled, and we have to stop this game that we're playing with each other.
Right.
By each one not being scared to complain, as well as at the same time taking responsibility for himself.
Right.
So when you're disturbed by noise, you can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You realize it's a health issue. It's not about Azan, and it's not about Ganpati, and it's not about Diwali. It's about the hospital patients, and it's about your sleep,
right,
and having to go to work the next day.
Yeah. Right.
So what you need to do is immediately make use of this court order.
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily for us, everybody can download a free app onto their phone.
Mm-hmm.
If you just type in noise meter, there's so many of them which come up. And we're also trying to work on a dedicated app which will have GIS mapping, but we haven't done it yet.
Okay.
So just download any app, measure the noise level, complain to 100, which is the police control room number. Make them give you a complaint number. They sometimes put you off because they don't want to take those complaints.
Right.
Make them give you a complaint number and keep a record, keep a chart, date, time, decibel level. Take a photograph of the reading on your phone, and then you can follow up with higher authorities in the police. You can write to the commissioner, you can write to the whoever, whichever level you want to, and ultimately if you want to, you can go to court.
Right.
10 people did find it worthwhile filing PILs.
Right.
So not that getting a court order is going to switch it off the next day either.
Absolutely.
But when more and more people get involved, we're trying to construct a citizens' noise map.
Mm-hmm.
So this data which we get will be part of that noise map. And of course, when we're talking of political reasons for allowing noise to happen, then the only thing which can work is citizens' pressure.
Right.
And even administration. It's like I'm telling you to call 100, but 100 didn't always take noise complaints.
Right.
It's only after the court order of 2003, and when people started calling me, and for lack of ability to do anything else. I mean, what can I do? I'm a person or citizen just like you. So I just asked people to call 100.
Right.
And actually that worked so well that they set up that system.
Okay.
Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. That's true. I mean, I'll be the first to acknowledge that. But interestingly, it works very well for most of the year.
Okay.
It doesn't work when there's an organized political involvement.
Right. So, I mean, when you call 100 and you register a complaint, you get a complaint number. I mean, are the cops then obliged to come to that spot and tell the noisemaker to tone it down? Is that what's
They're
expected?
obliged to come to the spot and also to take action,
Mm-hmm.
including criminal action. So
Okay.
they can take penal action
Right.
as well as criminal action.
Right.
And again, it's up to us to ensure that happens. I know it's very frustrating. People call me all the time and say, well, they came, but they've left now and it started again. What should we do? Are we going to be up all night calling 100 repeatedly?
Right.
But unfortunately, I think that's what it's going to take, because we've come to a point where it's only that which is going to make a difference. And I keep telling people, it's not useless. Don't get disheartened. It's not useless, because if you succeed, and many people do succeed, you're an inspiration to the next person.
Right. Right. Okay.
But something like traffic is also such an individual choice, right? Because you're just constantly blaring. I mean, it's insensitivity to somebody. When you know you're passing such a place, especially, I mean, how
And also,
do you
I think
sort
in
of regulate
India,
that?
the decibel levels of our horns are far higher than what they are elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I think, a Hyundai's horn is far louder, shriller over here than it is in Korea. So this is also something that could be done, right? Tone down horn levels, but how will this ever happen? I mean, I guess the automakers and the government, it would have to be some kind of concerted effort.
Well, that's very interesting that you said that, because actually the NGT had passed an order last couple of years
This is the
ago.
National Green Tribunal.
Yeah, National Green Tribunal, the Western branch. And then the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board set up a committee, of which I was also a part. And we made a recommendation that decibel levels of horns should not exceed 10 dB more than the vehicle itself. And the logic was that in earlier years, when, as you said, Hyundai has the loud, all others, because they're all competing with each other. But earlier, when you had these taxis who had the horns, they were not very loud horns, and everybody could hear them, because when everybody's horn is softer, then everyone can hear the softer horn.
Right.
And anyway, the traffic is not moving anywhere, so you don't really need to hear it like 2 kilometers away.
Right.
You need to hear it right there,
Yeah.
if at all.
Yeah.
So this was the recommendation, and in the High Court order, which has just been passed, after the recommendation, the state issued a notification that this should be implemented, and the High Court has said that notification should stand. So
Right.
it's very recent, and nothing has happened on the ground, but we do have the tools now,
Okay.
and it's a matter of making it happen.
Right.
So again, that's a matter of all of us. That I know when we did a testing of horns, and we walked down Carter Road asking people to blow their horns so we could measure them. And actually some people said, no, we can't do that because it's very loud.
Right.
So people themselves feel annoyed. But
Right.
that's the horn in their car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this High Court order, I mean, it's accessible to all,
Yeah,
right?
It's accessible. Yeah.
Okay, so we can, is it on your website?
No, it's not, but I can send it to you and I'll put it on my website.
Okay.
And because it's such a long order, I've also kind of made a small summary of it,
Right.
issue-wise, so that
Okay.
it's easy for people to understand.
Right. Okay.
To read a full book on noise pollution may not be possible for everyone.
Right. Well, I mean, so I guess that anyone who's interested in this issue needs to read this order and figure
Yeah.
out, how we can do our bit to control this.
Yes.
Sumaira, why don't you just tell our readers and listeners how they can get more information on your organization and your various social media outlets?
Well, I would like that everybody who makes a police complaint on 100 also gives us some information about that on our Facebook page called Get Well Soon Mumbai. So the idea is that Mumbai is not very well at the moment because of all this noise. And so we have various campaigns which we've been doing. One of them is the Citizens Noise Map, in which everybody's inputs are very important. We'll be able to compile the data, apart from your own complaints, and send it to the government, to the police, and maybe even to the High Court, so that, if there are more complaints of certain types, they'll be useful to us. So please do that. And then we have various campaigns which I invite everyone to join against honking, called Tell the Driver. So tell your rickshaw driver, your father, your husband, yourself, your driver, whoever, not to honk. And you can have campaigns, you can use the material, it's freely available, you can put your logo on it and use it. Please create awareness. This is especially relevant for schools, colleges, anybody. Then we have in the festival season, we have a campaign called Your Awaz Against Noise. And the first campaign of Your Awaz Against Noise is Gods Against Noise. Because we believe that every god, every religion talks of peace and shanti and nirvan and not about noise. So all gods, according to us, are against noise. Apart from Gods Against Noise, we have other campaigns, People Against Noise, Children Against Noise, Doctors Against Noise. We've tied up with the Indian Medical Association. So again, all partnerships are welcome. We can have Animals Against Noise, of course. So anybody who is against noise.
Right.
So we have these few campaigns. Please join them, join us, use the material we have. We have horn flu. Honking is a disease. It creates disease also, like mental health, road rage. So these are all actual diseases, and horn flu itself is a disease.
Well said.
I have it.
Okay, so that's it for Metro Station.
Thanks for being on.
Thanks for being on the show.
Sumaira. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you like what you heard, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We're at The Daily Pao.
And you can also sign up to our newsletter to get weekly updates and things to do in Bombay.
And to listen to every episode of the podcast, follow us on Savan.
If you like listening to the podcast, you can also check out Cyrus Says, hosted by the Cyrus Brocha. It's an irreverent podcast on current events, urban India, politics, sports, civic sense, traffic, kids, food, and everything that matters. Well, mostly.
Excuse me, भैया. Excuse me.
बोलिए मैडम.
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस सेज है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, टिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर सकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है. आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम. आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप. सब आपकी उंगलियों पे.